Yes, hello, very good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. A very warm welcome to what is probably going to be our final live software demo of 2022. So if you've joined us for this one, welcome and glad to have you on board. We're just going to give everyone just a couple of minutes to join us if they're a little bit late clicking in. And then I will leave you in the capable hands of my guest today, who is Jan Ellebrock from trueLedger, and we're going to be talking all about professional services and how a software solution like trueLedger can help you to revolutionize and control in real time your professional services spend. So Jan, good afternoon. Hi, welcome.
Good afternoon also from my side. Happy that we have the opportunity. Thanks a lot, James. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. So I just for full disclosure, procurementsoftware.site is actually a partner of trueLedger. So yeah, we do work together and help to drive some sales for them. So I would be happy to point you in the right direction. If after this webinar you do want to find out and learn a little bit more, then I would be happy to connect you with Jan and facilitate that conversation. So just while we're waiting for anyone who may be joining us a couple of minutes late, procurementsoftware.site, if you haven't come across what we do already, we are essentially a directory website that lists all of the different procurement software providers that are out there, with a specific focus on solutions providers that are a little bit more niche, that are not an all-in-one suite. We have got those listed, but we tend not to focus on those because what I'm really all about is to showcase up-and-coming technology solutions and some of the more innovative providers that are out there. And typically in this space, the innovation doesn't come from the big legacy brands. We also try to have a focus on solutions that are affordable to mid-market businesses as well. A lot of our competitors or a lot of other research houses and websites and content providers in this space really tend to focus on more enterprise level solutions. So we try and differentiate ourselves a little bit and focus on solutions that are also within the reach of a mid-market business. What is a mid-market business? Well, I guess it always depends on how you define it, but I would say anything from about $50 million or euro in annual revenue right the way up to about $1 billion, because that's typically the sort of threshold where the big boys tend to be interested to speak to potential customers directly. So if you're on the lookout for software and you are a CPO or a CFO or perhaps a boutique consultancy that is in that space, and you'd like to know about the full range of different software solutions in all of the different category niches, then please reach out and I'd love to give you a quick tour of the website or give you a few tips and tricks of what might be the right solution for you. But today is all about professional services procurement. 2023 is going to be a difficult year in an inflationary environment, especially with a lot of headcounts being frozen, a lot of hiring freezes, a lot of travel restrictions, the typical things that commercially illiterate businesses do when they walk into some economically hard times. So if you're facing those pressures and are really facing some headwinds there, then getting to grips with your professional services spend and being able to monitor and track that and query that in real time is an area where you can pretty quickly get some untapped savings as well as cost avoidance to make sure that you deliver anything that you want to buy professional services wise well within target of your budgetary requirements. So without any further ado, I will hand over to Jan because he's the expert in this space and can walk you through. So Jan, maybe if I hand over the reins to you, maybe just give a quick background of how you got into be CEO of a tech company. And then I believe you've got a few general slides that you want to present on trueLedger. And then after that, we can dive straight into the demo. So yeah, over to you, sir.
Perfect. Thank you very much, James. Yes, speaking about my background, actually, I spent about 2/3 of my career or let's say 1/3 of my career as a consultant, as a strategy consultant, management consultant, and 2/3 of my career in the insurance industry, where I was in charge of managing a lot of external service providers, professional service providers, like the names of consultants, IT developers, business process outsourcing, contractors, lawyers, etc. So that really inspired us to build trueLedger. We are a relatively young new startup that's out there on the market with a pretty unique smart contracting solution, which I'm about to introduce you. And I think very important from certainly our perspective is we don't see ourselves not just as the provider of the next best technology, but we feel that we can also help a lot when it comes to the philosophy of successful procurement. And I'm going to speak also about that a little bit, especially in the early moments of the presentation, to then speak a bit more about what we do and how we do it. So with no further delay, let's go a little bit into some of the key points of what's special in procurement around professional services. First of all, they're extremely relevant in, market size wise. They make up for about 30% of a company's workforce and 42% of cost of labor, which is very significant. But managing them is often not so easy. Because no matter what you negotiate at the beginning, it can be very difficult to understand the full scope and exact task and what needs to be done. And most of those providers actually ask to be paid on a time and material basis, which is just another way of being paid for effort. It is not paid for results. And so in professional services, unlike other spend category, it is not necessarily the rate that matters to an overall contract or to the success of it. It is actually what you pay in the end to get the job done. So this is something which results with little surprise in a lot of concerns for and bad feelings for many players and companies of all sizes. The feedback we collected is that 70% of them say projects fail to deliver scope within budget, little visibility in quality and progress of externals, what do they actually do, and certainly unexpected additional costs driven by externals. So what can be done about that? That's obviously the big question. And here, from the perspective of trueLedger, we offer a very unique approach. First of all, we are huge believers into value-based procurement. For those of you who hear this term for the first time, it basically says that procurement takes a role which goes beyond the simple optimization of unit prices or rates, but procurement actually worries about giving the most value to the organization which they serve internally by finding the right resources at the right capacity at the best possible price, who then deliver the best possible outcome. And that focus is one that really helps actually do dramatic things in professional service, in procurement of professional service. Once I want to do that, I would like to have some good tools in my hands to achieve that. And smart contracts here actually help dramatically in achieving this. How do they do it? First of all, they empower procurement actually to make value-based considerations earlier and critical parts of the contracts they negotiate and the terms and conditions which ultimately find their way into the collaboration agreements. And then they provide the internal organization, those who actually run the projects or the collaborations with the external providers, with a management cockpit that allows them to steer the fulfillment in an optimal way. And those two components together form the best possible way of actually achieving the desired results. What are smart contracts?
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, I would use the simple Wikipedia definition here. Smart contracts are a computer program or protocol, basically, that allows to automatically execute the collaboration agreement with all the terms and conditions that have been written therein. And the important reason why do you use smart contracts? Well, you use them obviously for transparency. You use this for the reduction of need for any intermediation or arbitration. You use them for cost avoidance, fraud avoidance, and obviously any sort of unexpected developments that you wouldn't want to have. That's what smart contracts have been built for. This is from Wikipedia, and I think it couldn't express it better what smart contracts do. But it's basically an automatically executable code or protocol that we have. What do they do in the context of professional service management? Well, I already spoke about the value-based procurement part. They really allow you to put all these terms and conditions in, and you are immediately very clean on what they mean and what they actually do. And I'm happy to demo that in a second. You get full transparency in real time. You know exactly where you stand in your collaboration with your externals. Again, something I'm happy to demo in a minute. And you get constantly update cost and cash flow projections, so you know exactly where you stand, and you do so long before any invoice is issued, because then it's usually too late. Often there is information delays of 4 to up to 12 weeks between the moment something happens and the moment you actually have transparency in your system. The system also generates invoices automatically, which means you no longer have to worry about what you get from your provider. Is that accurate? Are the charges correct? Are the rates correct? Everything, no, it doesn't need to be checked anymore because the system does it automatically. And in the same go, the system also guarantees contract compliance, so there is no leakage and reviews or audits become unnecessary. Nice to see, though, also that in the collaboration with your providers, this helps really to build trust in the collaboration. There is always a common version of the truth because both sides see what's going on, and there's absolutely no question of the ultimate truth because it's there. Everybody can access it, and you can discuss over facts and not over different perceptions. And obviously, the automation possibilities are huge. I will show a little bit of that as well. Important to say, as I already mentioned earlier, this approach goes beyond the pure roles of procurement. It involves other parties or brings lots of benefits to other parties. And that's an important part of the advantage here, because it empowers, as I already said, those who on a day-to-day basis execute and collaborate with those service providers, often in a transformatory environment such as project leaders. And it also gives transparency to finance and controlling, and I'm also going to show that. So how does it work? Let's give a concrete example, and you will see this example that I'm showing here later on also directly in the tool. So we have here a buyer of professional services, the hyperbank, and we have here a provider which is called P&E Consulting. A few people here to meet. Anna is the project manager, so in charge of the digital bank initiative. Ben is in charge of professional service procurement. Matt is the financial controller. Charlotte on the other side is the key account manager for Hyperbank, and Bob is the front-end developer who does the work. Initial steps are pretty clear. Anna does a service request. She wants an IT developer for her front end, enters that into the system. Ben, the procurement responsible, enters an RFP, sends out an RFP to multiple providers. I think there's nothing overly special here. I'm sure all of you have done this plenty of times. Where it becomes more interesting, actually, is the fact when Charlotte now enters her offer, as do all the others, her proposal basically into trueLedger. And Ben receives multiple of these proposals back, where he can now see actually the different the different structures that have been offered. Here I'm indicating to you a regular time and material basis here, a cost cap, a fixed price, risk sharing agreement. So some mechanism that has been offered, and Ben can now, with the scenario builder, actually compare those offers and really look into what do they mean. Again, with the background that if the budget here is 100,000, that might be right, but chances are the budget is going to be whatever, because it takes a certain time until the work is done. Here, what we have agreed is that, for example, a commitment by Charlotte, a discount on anything that's above budget, that would be a classic risk sharing term, and the rest, I think, is all things that you already know. So on the buyer side, Ben and Anna discuss the respective offers and choose the offer from Charlotte, which they can then, with one click, turn from an offer into a contract. Charlotte countersigns it, and basically, even also for Matt, who's the controller, he understands obviously purchase orders and expected cash outs from a budget and cash management perspective. So Bob comes to work, and Bob now every day enters his work reports in trueLedger. Again, a very simple process, nothing overly exciting. Anna, who's in charge of him, can frequently, ideally daily or by the end of the week, review those time reports and either sign them off, or if she's not happy, decline them, in which case Bob has the opportunity to correct and adjust, and Anna can then on the second go approve it. So here again, just a dialogue that helps both sides to actually collaborate over the deliverables and agree on what has been done and what hasn't. This provides now we come to the more interesting part with the immediate transparency for Anna on cost versus budget, because she knows exactly where she stands today. So she can do an on-the-fly check. Here I am, here's where I should be, and understand that immediately. Matt has the exactly same transparency, so he already knows what will be an upcoming invoice. He knows, again, also will there be any budget issues or not, and can, on his side, obviously then on a portfolio level, make also further assessment on how the overall procurement spend on professional services is developing. And Charlotte also has the same transparency and is able to help steer the engagement, make sure that things happen. And thanks to the fact that there was a risk-sharing agreement, she actually has a strong interest of hopefully terminating the project before that penalty becomes too hefty. And then comes finally the payment part, which is that the trueLedger system at the end of the month just automatically triggers the invoice, sends it out or makes it accessible to both sides. And this can then serve as an electronic document or fed directly into seamlessly into an ERP system with all the data that are attached to it. And then obviously the payment can be processed as normally. Important here, neither Anna needs to do an invoice check, nor Charlotte needs to write an invoice, nor Ben needs to check it and see whether it's in alignment with the purchase order. Everybody basically can rely that on the terms and conditions that have been agreed up front and the transactions that have been agreed by Ben and Anna operationally, Bob and Anna, sorry, operationally as the ones which they work with. That combination already gives us everything we need to generate an invoice, and that invoice, as I said, is guaranteed to be correct because it includes everything that is needed. Important to say, this functionality that you've just seen is not provided by any procure-to-pay platform on the market. It is also not provided, except with a notable exception of a purely rate-based with nothing in it by any vendor management system. So in other words, today there is no smart contracting capability that allows you as a buyer to control your cost on the fly, to negotiate proper terms and conditions, and have this real-time control that you need in order to optimize the collaboration with your vendors and get the most value out of them. What does this bring you? It brings you actually enormous savings. Total of about 10 to 25%, which are made up of four major drivers. The first one is the value-based procurement part, so the negotiation of rates and terms that actually lead to risk sharing between the buyer and the vendor. They tend to have tremendous impact on the overall discipline and the overall success of projects. The active steering part is the next one. So you eliminate a lot of waste. Nobody knew what was happening, a lot of work done, but turns out only weeks later that it was not needed or it was actually going in the wrong direction. Again, something with the real-time transparency, you can steer into a much better way. Last point is of that package is the contract compliance part with leakage taken away. On leakage alone, even in an ex post review, we see about 0.5% to 7% overcharges from professional service providers. Go on top with the transparency in real time that these short feedback cycles you have, those numbers go up even further with respect to the savings they generate. And the interesting thing is that from a procurement perspective, value-based procurement so far wasn't measurable. Here, actually, those risk terms with trueLedger, you can measure them. So you can say that my cost cap or my risk sharing term has generated these amount of savings, and you can record them as KPIs in favor of procurement as they basically come out of the system in the transparency that's there. Obviously, there's also savings from reducing the administration effort, because the whole management overhead is dramatically reduced with the fact that invoice validation, cost reporting, forecasting, etc. is no longer needed. And priceless is the good feeling that you get on top as a freebie. I'm not going to go into detail of this slide, but this is a client study we did with the invoice handling process before introduction of trueLedger and after introduction of trueLedger, and you can see basically how tremendous the process simplification was. In fact, it was just a one step because it was manual. Somebody took out the invoice of trueLedger and fed it into the procurement system. This was a client who had a project management system and a procurement system. So you had both systems in place, and still it was not possible to cover that with the functionality of those tools. Important to say, this is a solution which is the only one on the market. We have it. It's a modular contracting engine. So if what I'm about to demonstrate to you, you feel you have 20 more terms and conditions and different contract structures, talk to us. We have analyzed this with Procurement Expert. We came out to about 10 charging models, about 40 terms and conditions that are typically included, and with those are in scope of what we can cover, and they cover, to our understanding, 99.9% of typical contract structures. And also important to say, this is a system which is designed for reality. So yes, we can do multi-currency. Yes, you can change contracts on the fly. You can have rates which evolve over a period of time. You can have retroactive corrections. Whatever it is, those real-life scenarios, we've got them covered. We're obviously an SaaS platform that we, on one hand, you can use out of the box, but we also understand, especially with larger companies, that there may be an interest in adopting it to make it more useful for the specific needs and integrations also to a firm, which brings me to the next point. There is a lot of existing platforms that you might have that you want to connect with. Again, if that's of interest, something we can do. But the good news is you don't need to roll this out as a major project with a huge effort in a first step at least, or never at all, because the benefits come with the first engagements. And if you maybe have one or two critical engagements that you want to clean up first, that might be a great point to start. And get very high quick wins at a very affordable rate. This brings me to my last slide, which is the fact, how do we typically engage with our clients? We really want to understand your situation. Nobody is the same. And then through pilots and pilot work, which we call service pilot, with the intention to really spend time with you, look at your processes, look at your approaches, but then also together with you be able to make sure that we use the solution in the best possible way. That's something which we like to do in order to make sure that this solution brings maximum value to you before we actually then debate further things such as a strategic implementation. And that brings me actually to the demo part. I don't know if we can or will have any questions here, so I assume not. So I would just go over and demo the tool now, if that's okay, James.
Yeah, so if anyone does have any questions that's watching, just pop them in the comments and we will tackle those after the demo. So if you do have a question and you're watching this live, then please place it in the comment section and we will then flash it up on the screen, and we can ask Jan any questions that you may have. But yeah, one question that I had, Jan, what sort of annual professional services spend would a possible customer need to have to typically see a return on investment here?
So as I said, it can in certain cases be as little as one annoying project, which obviously wouldn't be a 10,000 franc project. It would be more something in the range of 3 to 5 million. But as a rule of thumb, we say if your professional service spend exceeds 10 million, it is worth having a conversation.
$10 million, euros, Swiss francs. They're
Good
all pretty much the same these days.
That's all the same today.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think 10 million rupees would be too little, but dollars, Swiss francs, euros, pounds is all in range.
Okay.
Perfect.
Cool.
So as you can see now here on the screen is this is my entry screen where I have my various engagements, and what you see immediately here is that you get a cost view of those. So here is a project Seraphine, which is 29% above budget. I can take a look in here, and what the system shows me immediately, it shows me where I am today with these three pillars. The dark green pillar, this is invoices I paid in the past. Medium shows me actually the charges that have come up this month, which has been confirmed, and then by us as the buyer is correct. And then there's a small pillar, this light green one, which basically shows charges that have been declared by the vendor as additional charges that have not been confirmed. So I have a procedural understanding of where I stand, what's prior month's charges, what's this month's charges, which of those are confirmed, which of those are still subject to debate or at minimum processing. What I also see very nicely here is I have an engagement with various resources. So I can now check how are my resources doing. So I'm 29% above budget. I have 28% of effort, which is higher than Nassim, not to 29, but I have another effort as well, or impact as well, which is the fact that in terms of the resource mix, we can see that somehow the more senior resources have actually seriously overcharged, while the more junior resources actually have been underutilized. So this project has multiple interesting issues to extract, as well as basically all the financial aspects of it, because of various risk-sharing terms and conditions that are out there. Not all charges directly resulted into also the same overspend or underspend on the financial side.
So that's an interesting one then, actually. So that one, if I take consultancy as an example, or legal services is another good one. If you have an agreement or a quotation or a contract to say that there will be no more than 1 or 2 days per month that are billed by a principal or by a partner, then that's a great way of tracking that, isn't it, in real time?
Absolutely. And I can actually show you this if I go into the contract itself, because the contract, which I, in the interest of time, will not go through in all detail. Always happy to take this out in a detailed follow-up if there's interest. But if I go into my rate tables here, then I do have obviously the rates for the various resources, but we have also agreed on a few terms here, which is, for example, that the partner must not exceed 30 days, and more than 30 days can actually not be billed. We have also agreed that 10 days will be free of charge as a freebie that was thrown in. And on the summary level, we have also agreed to certain risk-sharing terms. You see here that the total engagement would have been 704,000, and we said, okay, anything in excess to that, the next 8%, what it is, between 704,000 and 770,000 is actually 100% discount from the vendor gives to the buyer. So that's basically a little bit of access work would just be included free of charge. And once we exceed that, then there would be a 25-75 split. So the vendor takes a 25% cut on all rates until the project is completed. So these are the terms and conditions that have been agreed here. And if I now go back actually to the engagement that I just, to the thing that I just shared with you, then what you can see here is we have also the complete spend progression looking into the future. Here I'm already in the project finishes by end of the year. The blue line is my budget as it has been set up, and the green line is actually those charges as they have been creeping up and over time. And this is a project which has apparently completely run over budget, so constant access of resources needed, as we already shared earlier. At least what I can do now, I can now very exactly project where will I end up by the end of the project. And in this case, the projection is that I'm 27% above budget, as I pretty much am today, with 29% as of today. So I have this full transparency. I can calculate this out. I could obviously also now adjust here and say, but wait a minute, this project is going to last until end of January because we'll run over, and the resources are actually more like 110% of the actuals so far, or we could say 110% of budget, and basically just rerun the calculation, and then you get the latest, and then you can project into what will be your project expenditure and total expenditure on that particular engagement until end of January, because it actually runs longer.
We've had a question come in, Jan. I don't know if you want to take it now or if
Sure.
you prefer to wait to the end. Okay, let me flash this up on the screen. So this is from Florent. I'm curious if is it possible to share with us what real business area I assume they mean a customer of yours have already deployed with a smart contract. So what types of services?
Yes, so we see in most cases we see everything that's related around project work. So being it consultants, being IT developers, those are the cases we see most. We see contractors as another case that's very predominant. And we see also in initial stage, we're starting to see more also legal services such as lawyers, etc.
What about facilities management and maybe sort of more blue collar maintenance services? How does that fit? You know, the more out of my curiosity, because that's my background.
It's a huge topic, and we just spoke to a contract auditing firm that is who's a partner of ours. And here, actually, when it comes to contract compliance, these guys are the ones where you can save the most. So there is actually a huge interest in facility management solutions also becoming part of this, and is something which we're working on. And as soon as basically there's concrete cases, we're more than happy to evolve in that way, because we very much follow a bit also the demand we get from our customers, and we have understood that facility management is a big topic. Because I mean, those contracts are crazy nowadays. You can empty the trash, twice a week, not every time. So please only charge for the 3 times, even if it was done 5 times, and so on and so forth. And there are huge amounts of savings associated with that. And yes, that is a big topic.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, carry on.
This is a good point. Yeah, exactly. We have looked into with partners into even construction projects as something to include. Again, from a functionality perspective, not a problem. There's a few use cases that would still be missing but can be added in. I don't know whether Flora was thinking of any specific industries. Happy to answer it more specifically if there's a question. And then last but not or important part that I want to share obviously with you is the automated invoicing. So as I now go into this project, Seraphine, again, to just stick with this example, you see there's 10 invoices have been sent out, and I can open now each and every one of them and look into them. I have pre-opened 3 of them. Let me just basically, because I wanted to show you some of the specifics. So here the invoice number 3. This was the one where our partner, you see, is still free of charge, because we had the first 10 days were given free. So the system said, wait a minute, you have these 3 free days, and deducts all of that to make sure that that freebie is actually included and won't be forgotten. And then here is the last one when it's still fully free of charge. Here you then see 5,000 becomes 3,500 because there's just a few hours left that hadn't been charged yet. And then as of basically this one, the partner is fully charged because that freebie, those freebie days that had been negotiated were used up. So the system just made sure that that agreement that was in place is properly calculated for and is properly included. And nobody needs to worry about that to happen. It just happens automatically. The same happened as we ran into the limit. So the partner was limited to 30 days. That limit was reached here. So again, this was the last day that could fully be charged. And then here, this day actually could only be charged by 60%. And then as of June, bit early after half a year already, those partner hours were exceeded. So this was a good term to negotiate. The partner hour as of they are no longer chargeable because, and subsequently no longer chargeable because that limit has been reached. And then the next one I also wanted to show to you is the actually the access volume discount, right? That had been agreed. So if you hit more than 704,000. What every invoice tells you, it tells you what's the total from this invoice, including all prior invoices. But what it also does is it basically shows you now here, hey, there was an access volume discount agreed, which now 100% in excess of 704,000 and 25% in excess of 797 has been applied, is deducted, and is now applicable. And in the next invoice, which will come out on December the 8th, obviously all hours will again have then the 25% excess charged as well, deducted as well from the invoice. So good news here is you have agreed on these terms. You have you want to be sure that they're being applied. You don't want to check your invoices whether it's correct. You don't want to run the stats over the 25 prior invoices that you got to make sure has the trigger been reached. The system does it. There's nothing you need to worry about. I want to show you if unless there is any question, I want to show you one or two other very nice features, which is especially as you come to negotiating a contract or looking into a contract. This is obviously a contract with a cost cap, right? So you can look here at your engagement summary. The contract is 194,000. Cost cap has been agreed as of 200,000. What does that mean? And then you can here, obviously, in a simulation, discuss and decide under which scenarios would you reach that cost cap, or is that cost cap realistic? So this could be, in this case, it's an overrun of 120%, where it's well in reach, right? Finishing on time, but you could obviously also think that the project might run longer than promised, and you can look at that. You can also then look at the individual cost per resource. If you look here, then the partner is 400 an hour, then the director as well, the consultant 174, the senior consultant 231. If I obviously reach that cost cap, those prices will come down. So I have full understanding also of what my unit costs are under various scenarios. Again, when it comes to negotiating, I might be happy to sign a contract where the rates are 10, 15, 20% higher, but I get that cost cap. And because it actually gets me in a realistic scenario to a lower rate than if I have a pure time and material rate where I end up with no other terms and conditions, but I pay until the job is done. So these are exactly very fine elements that we can use to allow to make the right decisions when I do the purchasing of a purchase decision. I have another beautiful one, I believe here. That's a volume discount where literally it said, I think, let me look at the engagement. It said that, hey, I have 10% if I exceed spend of 150,000. Again, what does that mean? Actually, it sounds good, but what does it mean? I can look into the simulation here again and understand, okay, It will apply if my if I go into at least the third phase or the fourth phase of the project, and I can then it has this small effect, and that on total cost. And again, I could project here in the future to see what it actually means vis-a-vis a cost cap or vis-a-vis other offers that are being made to me. So this gives me a lot of flexibility in choosing the right engagement terms and negotiating what's important and what will ultimately play out. And it's never the same. If I know exactly that I can be done in a very limited period of time, everything will be executed perfectly, then I might be willing to look more into a low price. If I think there's a lot of implementation risk, I might want to look more into what commitments are behind it, what commitments can I negotiate with my vendors that they make towards the completion of the work within the defined financial scope.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's all around risk versus potential reward, isn't it? And understanding, how solid the scope is from your side as the buyer. And if you think that the scope is perhaps a little bit vague, then having some sort of cost ceiling or cost cap maybe the best way forward, or having some sort of bonus malus share if you want to encourage the supplier to complete the job faster or cheaper. If it's like you said, something like a software development project, it's all around assessing that risk and thinking a little bit outside the box. And that kind of brings me on. Florent came back actually with a different question, and that kind of leads quite nicely onto that. Really around change management. And I appreciate, Jan, it may be a bit more difficult for you to answer this because you're not the customer, but I guess you should have some feeling of, how did that process run within your customer in terms of, how did they break that regular cycle? And, the typical stakeholders don't like change, and we're asking them to do something different.
Yeah. So what we have seen is, first of all, there's different levels, obviously, of maturity in various organizations. If you, for example, as of today, have your providers already on your, your Coupa or your Jagger end to end. It's different than if you have maybe a procurement system that you use internally, and then you send your contracts out by email or fax or mail or whatever. So depending on that, the impact can be really marginal to nothing, or it can be a little bit higher. But what we have seen overall is that in most cases, it's actually surprisingly marginal, because what we have seen on the procure-to-pay tool side certainly is that the whole collaboration there, due to the lacking capabilities of those platforms for the service procurement part, actually many of those processes are not fully integrated, are not actually end-to-end defined. And so we basically come in very handy exactly at those handover points with our solution, and then the change management is really minuscule. On the vendor side, we have a ratio of about 90-95%. I would have to look up the exact statistics, who say, no problem, we're happy to use the platform. We have a few that are a bit more resisting. We have a few where we had to look around some operational issues with them, but in most cases, we've literally gotten the feedback, we have some other partners who force us to use different tools, or ask other clients who ask us to use different tools. And this is 10 times better than anything we've seen before. So we feel very much rewarded in terms of being here on something that's not just asking providers to feed data into a black hole, but actually they get something back themselves in terms of they get their own transparency, they get their own forecasting mechanisms, they get their own ability to manage the collaboration, and that's something which has actually been very positively recognized by the vendors.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan. So I'm just conscious of the time and need to wrap up. If anyone is watching and just has a final last minute question, then be quick on your keyboards and we'll get that to Jan before we sign off. Otherwise, Jan, if you've got just a couple of minutes just to conclude, or anything else that you wanted to share, or if anyone perhaps would like to reach out to learn a bit more, then what should they do next?
Yes, so really feel free to reach out at any given point in time. So I have my contact data here. We're also on LinkedIn, but also obviously you, James, feel free to reach out to either of us. Really, don't be shy to try. The potential that we find with professional service provider, the savings potential is huge. And it is something that can be implemented relatively easily because the overall reactions are very positive from a usability perspective, from a control perspective, from a transparency perspective. And here is really a possibility for procurement to shine above and beyond the pure procurement scope, but into the rest of the organization as providing a value-added service to their colleagues. So I can only encourage you to pick up the phone or pick up the keyboard and get in touch.
Jan, thank you very much. So for everyone who was watching, also this one being our last demo of 2022, thank you for watching. We will be able to send you a DM of the link to the video once we've got that edited and trimmed as well. So anyone who I'm connected to, I can send that out to any attendees. If you weren't able to catch the whole session, we can do that as well. So all the best. Take care wherever you are, and catch you again in January for our next live demo. And Jan, thanks for coming along and showing us trueLedger.
Thanks to you, and thanks for the very good questions. It was a pleasure.
Okay. Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.